It was supposed to be a simple job. Survey this moon, catalog any anomalies, and go home. That's what they told me. My name's Carson Hale. Just another grunt working for the Epsilon Colonization Initiative. You know the type. Low pay, long shifts, and nothing but endless stretches of rock and dust. This particular rock was Argus 9, a barren moon orbiting some gas giant nobody bothered naming. I was sent out alone, as usual, to chart mineral deposits. What I found instead changed everything. I was trekking across the ridge of a crater, my boots crunching against gray, lifeless soil. The horizon was a haze of red from Argus 9's thin, toxic atmosphere, and my oxygen tank hissed quietly with every step. I figured I'd be back at my lander in a few hours. Then I saw it. Something moved. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow playing across the crater floor. But no, there was a figure stumbling awkwardly across the dust. It looked humanoid, but it didn't make sense. Nothing was supposed to live here. I switched my helmet visor to magnify and froze. It was a woman, or something close to one. Her skin was pale silver, almost metallic, and her hair flowed like liquid light. She wore no suit, yet she gasped for air, clutching her chest as if each breath might be her last. Her eyes, large and glowing faintly violet, met mine across the distance. Then she crumpled to her knees. Instinct took over. I skidded down the ridge, my oxygen hissing faster as I sprinted toward her. My brain screamed, "Why?" over and over. Argus 9 was dead. I couldn't help her. She shouldn't even be here. But I couldn't just leave her. She collapsed fully as I reached her, her body trembling violently. Up close, I realized she was impossibly thin, her ribs showing beneath her strange silver skin. Her eyes, half-lidded, looked dull, starvation. I knelt beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" She blinked weakly, her lips moving, but no sound came. I knew I didn't have much time. I flipped open the small emergency pack clipped to my suit and pulled out a meal bar, a dense nutrient block designed to keep humans alive in harsh conditions. I didn't know if she could eat it, but I had to try. "Here," I said, tearing the wrapper open. "Eat." Her eyes widened, glowing faintly brighter. She stared at the bar, then at me, as if I just handed her the key to the universe. Slowly, trembling, she reached out and took it. She bit into the bar, hesitant at first, then devoured the rest with desperate speed. When she finished, she looked at me, tears streaking her silver cheeks. "You," she whispered. Her voice was faint but clear, resonating with a strange melody. "You shared." We sat there for a moment, silent except for the hiss of my oxygen tank. She didn't need words to tell me what she'd been through. Her eyes said enough, days, maybe weeks, wandering this wasteland alone, dying. Her breathing slowed, though it still looked like a struggle. "I need to get you somewhere safe," I said. "My lander is close. Can you walk?" She nodded weakly. I slung her arm over my shoulder, and together we staggered across the crater. She was light, too light, like her bones were hollow. And yet, she felt real beneath my suit. When we reached the lander, I helped her inside and sealed the hatch. The oxygen systems hissed as breathable air filled the cabin. She collapsed onto the seat, gasping in deep, greedy breaths. I sat across from her, removing my helmet. She watched me carefully, as if seeing a human face was the strangest thing in the world. "Who are you?" I asked softly. She stared at me for a moment before answering. "My name is Elia," she said. Her voice was still weak, but there was strength behind it now. "I was a scientist. My people We explored. My vessel crashed here cycles ago. I'm the last. My stomach twisted. She'd been here all this time. How did you survive? I asked. Barely, she murmured. The air is thin, the ground barren. I tried to sustain myself, but there is nothing. She looked at me, her glowing eyes full of something I couldn't quite name. Your food saved me. It's just a ration bar, I muttered. To you, she said softly. To me, it was life. Over the next few hours, I gave her more food and water, rationing carefully to avoid overwhelming her system. She spoke little, but when she did, her words lingered in my mind. You share what you have, she said, even when you do not know me. Why? I frowned, because that's what you do when someone's in trouble. She tilted her head. Humans are strange. My people do not share so freely. It is inefficient. Yeah, well, I replied, smiling faintly. We're not always big on efficiency. She smiled back, small but genuine. When rescue finally came a week later, Elia stood beside me as the retrieval team boarded the lander. The medics were stunned by her presence. An alien, alive and breathing on a barren moon. I let them fuss over her, running scans and asking endless questions. Elia endured it all with quiet grace. But when it came time to leave, she turned to me and placed a hand on my shoulder. You saved my life, Carson Hale, she said. Not just with your food, but with your kindness. I will not forget. Don't mention it, I replied, trying to sound casual. It's what we do. Her violet eyes shimmered. Then perhaps you are more advanced than you believe. Months later, I heard rumors of diplomatic talks between humans and Elia's people. The Nixer, apparently. She'd been an important figure before her crash. Now, she was a bridge between our species. Speaking of humans as creatures who shared life, me, I went back to fixing ships. Life returned to normal. Mostly, but sometimes, when I sit in my workshop eating a ration bar, I remember the look in her eyes. That pure shock when I shared something as simple as food. It reminded me that kindness, no matter how small, can mean everything to someone who is nothing. And maybe, just maybe, that's humanity's greatest strength.